So we're opening our 7th restaurant. We open in April. We are based out of Cincinnati. My father's the founder, still CEO of the company. He opened when nobody would take a chance on him. He came from really nothing. He ran away from home when he was 15 years old, raised himself, went from failing every subject to attending Cornell Hotel Restaurant Administration. Came to Cincinnati because he was a Reds fan, and he did a lot of networking, and I think that's something that's really important to be said. Through networking when he was a general manager or an innkeeper at the Holiday Inn, he became very close with Johnny Bench, who's my godfather, and Pete Rose, and they backed him for his restaurant. From there, he took his time growing, and I know we're going to talk about growth models and expansion rates. He always said, I want to see my kids grow, and I don't want to see my restaurants grow. And so he said, what's cool now is the kids are in the business, and he's able to grow at a healthy rate, but he was very active in our childhood, and he really was a really great father. And he also had this restaurant on the Ohio River called the Waterfront, and it was in 1986. And I think that operating a restaurant on the river probably was more stress than operating 100 restaurants, brick and mortar. So, and then just over the course of the next 10, 15 years, very slowly, he opened Jeff Ruby Steakhouse downtown Cincinnati. And then we opened at Belterra Casino, one in Louisville, Kentucky. We just opened Nashville 3 years ago. And Columbus, woo woo, love Columbus. We opened last year, and business has been great, and we love this town. And then we open Lexington in April, and then we're gonna take a break for a little bit. So fine dining, USDA prime, impeccable service. That's probably what sets us apart, really, is taking care of our guests, taking care of our employees.
Tell us, how many employees do you have in the Ruby organization?
Soon to be 700.
700.
Yeah.
That's a big group of people to be responsible for, isn't it?
It's a big, and the word is what you said. It's a responsibility. We have a service to provide for not only our employees, but we really look at that as taking care of the families that we provide for as well. So it's an honor, though.
What about the philosophy your dad started the company with, and what you focus on today? Philosophy, culture, vision, that type of thing.
The philosophy is you're only as successful as the community in which the restaurant resides. And we have been blessed to really have an opportunity to give back at a great, just greatly with Cincinnati. And then, when you go into other markets, catering to that town as well and to that community. And so we get behind a lot of causes in the past. And most recently, we've focused it towards the foundation and towards foster care, but tragedies that arise, our employees are bought in, and they're the first to step up and help. So I think if you were to kind of hone in on a couple of words, we say it's the culture of caring. And that's caring for our employees, caring for our guests, and caring for our communities.
So if we would see some of the customer comments that you get, what the customers say about their experience at a Ruby restaurant.
You want the good or the
We want it all, but let's start with the good.
I think that over the top, value's big. We want people walking out. We're $100, $110 check average. So when they walk out, we want people to feel like that was the best money I've ever spent. And so creating an experience where we know it's a big deal when people save up. They come in once a year. They come in every 5 years. And then there's regulars, that come in all the time, but you treat everybody the same way. And you make every single person in the room feel like the most important person in the room.
So you mentioned you have a restaurant opening in April in Lexington, and you're going to kind of pause, make sure you get your business all kind of going well. If you look out 5, 10 years, has the organization started to think about what that might look like?
Well, I'm fresh on 3 years because we just did our strategic plan. So I can tell you in 3 years, we're probably not going to open one. I would say in 5 years, we will do Indianapolis. Oh, look at this guy. There he is. In 2 years. The purpose of strategic planning was to get you bought in that it's going to be 3 years. So we're doing this thing right now is we're restructuring our company. So we're buying all of our partners out. Our partners have been tremendous. They have backed him from the very beginning. But now, in order to do that, we want to have one holding company, and so it's really about prioritizing the growth model. I think between 5 and 10 years, one thing that we are big on is we've got to be the best, and we've got to take care of our employees and our guests, and we have to be able to focus. Our operations team has to be able to focus to be able to do that, and so we are not in a rush to grow before our brand can really experience that.
Let's shift gears a little bit. One of the things we hear about in the industry is that at the server level and oftentimes in the restaurant level, we're an industry that's as much as 70% female in the front of the house, and but we don't see as many women moving into executive and leadership roles. Now, that's not true everywhere. We heard this morning that at White Castle, somewhere around 70-75% of their general managers are women.
Oh.
But you obviously represent a kind of a young female leader, and it's somebody that people are going to look up to, right? So
well, thank you.
I'm just curious, talk a little bit about your experience and how you've grown, how you've come into this role leading as president of your organization.
So my dad really hired female servers when it was not the norm in steakhouses. Most of the servers in New York fine dining restaurants were male. And when he opened the precinct, this was something that he was really big on. And the trickle-down effect, I think, for years to come, hasn't really been much of an issue for us. And it's unfortunate that is an issue in our industry and in the restaurant industry specifically. So I love working with women. I love working with men. I really think that if there's a role and what the role is that they fill, and you're the best in that position and you're the best person for that, hopefully society and the restaurant industry can embrace that, equality and diversity in the workplace.
Well, we know that the president and CEO of the National Restaurant Association is Dawn Sweeney, and she's such a great example.
She does,
and
yeah.
In fact, I worked the CEO of Wendy's. I worked at Wendy's. I was on the executive team. Our CEO was female, Carrie Anderson, and so I don't see any difference at all. But I do think, it requires somebody to, kind of think ahead and plan. I'm just curious, as you were moving your way towards this role, what did you do to get yourself ready for a leadership role? I know you did the culinary school and things like that, but kind of share with us a little bit about your journey and how you got here.
Well, I will say it's harder. I feel in leadership, in any sense, it's as a female, you have something to prove, and so I don't want to pretend that isn't out there, because it is. For me specifically, I started when I was 15 years old as a hostess. My dad said, no way, so I went around his back and I went and interviewed with the general manager of one of our restaurants, and he hired me, and it was too late. So he didn't know that I was hostessing till Saturday night when he walked in. And the manager took me under his wing. He's the best in the business. Charlie Bledsoe, he's with us still 20 years now. He's at Carlo and Johnny. And Charlie's training model is you have to know everything about the restaurant. So really was the mastermind. Where I really fell in love with it was putting together a Saturday night. And this was before OpenTable and any sort of software. So it's like a playbook, it's just a grid. It almost looks like Tetris. And timing everything out and keeping the servers happy, making sure that everybody's getting fair pay and that it's not top heavy on one end and somebody else is not getting it. To me, that was really fun. And then he said, well, you get the hostessing thing, and really it was maitre d'ing. Now it's time to go in the back of house. And so he has every manager train on every single position on the front line. So I trained in the kitchen, fell in love with cooking, went to University of Cincinnati, got a religious studies major degree because I needed it in this industry. But I actually went...
So is that your advice? Go get a religious studies degree?
It helps, we'll say that. And so, when I was finished at UC, I thought I was going to put a power suit on and go to the corporate offices, and that I was ready for executive management. And my dad said, you're putting on a server uniform, actually, and you're going to serve at Jeff Ruby Steakhouse for 2 or 3 years. I would not take that back. That it's learning that and really being in there and going through that process is something that's been invaluable for me. But then I started into management, and through culinary school, I love cooking. I want to be a chef. He said, you're not going to be a chef. So then I'm going to quit and I'm going to open a catering company. So somehow I opened a catering company, which was fun. So, formed the LLC, did my own. I actually called on Cisco and I called on some of my vendors to talk to me about menu engineering, talk to me about what goes into this. Because, I went to culinary school, but I was never a chef myself. And I will never forget, one of the reps came to my house and he sat down with me and he went through all of the costing for everything to get my menu, and then helping me with ordering, and the relationship was just incredible, the customer service. Well, that didn't last too long. I did get burnt out. I should have taken his advice, but it was fun. And from there, I said, well, I guess I have to make a decision. What am I going to do? And I went to our corporate offices at that point as a guest relations manager. And then my dad, actually, the best gift, other than being my father, and he was always my number one mentor, no question. He brought in a man, Russell Mankus, who, because I was always jealous, I never went to go work outside of our company. I never knew what it was like to go work for someone else. And the gift that he gave me, Hilton came to me. So Russell Mankus was with the Hilton. He started with us in 1986, and then he traveled all over the world, Mexico, he was in China, and then he was recently at the New York, where he opened the Times Square Hilton, and then in Chicago. And my dad always tried to recruit him, and he said, you can't afford me, and we actually couldn't afford him at the time. And then the beauty is, when he retired, he said, I want to go out, I want to move back to Cincinnati and make a difference. And he came in, he not only mentored me for 3 years, but also our entire corporate team, and really positioned us from a metrics and systems standpoint, because we were operating very one-off, kind of individually, built the company to where it is, and we were able to scale. So that's probably was my most tremendous gift that he's given to me.
So you mentioned the culinary school, the divinity studies you did, but we'll leave that out of the rest of the interview. But so what do you like better, culinary or business?
I feel like I'm in the nitty-gritty of the business so much right now that it's unfortunate, because I love food, and so you kind of get away from it. And this is one of the, we call them Rubyisms. Stay close to your POS, more closer than you are at the corporate offices. But I tell you what, it's really hard to get sucked in to being behind a desk when you're managing a company. And so it's about balance. But I think from a passion standpoint, food is my passion. Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. So you do have a family business. Tell us a little bit about it. I know your dad's involved, and he's obviously, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Jeff Ruby was inducted into the Ohio Restaurant Association Hall of Fame last night. Congratulations, Jeff. Tell us a little bit about the family who's involved in the business, and how does that all that work?
It works great. I'm home a lot. Caleb, shut your ears. So I have 4 kids, 18 months, 5, 7, and 13. And it's a balance. And truly, I think the only way that it works for me is getting a head start and waking up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's a big deal. So I try to get all of my emails done before I even walk in the office at 8 o'clock. And I've sent out disclaimers. I don't expect everybody to respond at 4:30 a.m. To my team, but that's been a big deal for me. Working out, taking care of yourself. I'm big into yoga. With my kids, we homeschool, and this is something that the family sat around the table and said, hey, we're good to open new restaurants, but my brothers and I, it's very important that we are great parents. And so they go to a wonderful co-op program, it's Highlands Latin. They go 6 hours, and then they have a tutor that comes 3 days a week. But that gives me the opportunity when I travel. Like they're in Columbus right now, and they're exploring Columbus and COSI and everything that it's about. But when I go open new restaurants or when I travel, they come with me. And so I don't think I would be able to do it otherwise.
So we were chuckling before this about the work-life balance.
Yeah,
how does that work?
No, that's I have to practice it because I preach it, because it's so important for our employees. I can share a quick little thing if that's all right, but one of our mentors, Mark Kaner, he's the president of Western Southern, he said, it's kind of like diversifying your accounts. You got 4 accounts, you've got your personal, your professional, your wellness, and work-life balance. The balance, which is family. And he said he ends every meeting saying, how's it going with your family? And he said he does that for two reasons. He wants to know genuinely how's it going with the person who he's talking to, their family, but he does it as an accountability piece for himself too. And so with restaurants, it's tough. You're working when everybody's celebrating. And I think that for me, I got used to, it's not about the day necessarily, right? So Valentine's Day, New Year's Eve, those days don't really mean anything to me. Monday after New Year's Eve means something to me when I can take off, and I'm not in the operations as much as the guys are now and the team is, but it's just about figuring out when is your downtime and when can you stay, focused and plugged in with the kids and making sure that you're aware of it, really.
So you mentioned your brothers. What roles do they have in the company?
Well, they were really great managers of the restaurants, and they just recently came to corporate 2 years ago. Brandon opened Columbus with our GM right here, Ricky. So he traveled up. He's the director of training, and now actually they weren't able to come. Well, Brandon came last night, but they're in Lexington. So managing, opening the new restaurants, training component, they're highly involved in all the decision making with me.
Well, we've been at your restaurant downtown. We had a great event there last year, and you guys do a super job, so keep it up. So shift gears again a little bit. I know the Ruby family is very involved in giving back to the community and being involved. Tell us about that and the foundation, would you?
I grew up with dozens of surrogate brothers. My dad, because he never had a father, took kids in all the time and unofficially adopted them, really. He just spends as much time as possible. And it's amazing because he's truly invested into the conversation when he's having it with them or taking them and spending quality time. And the foundation, really, we sat down 2 years ago and said, hey, we give, and you all know in restaurants, you get hit up a lot for gift cards, right? Or different charities, and it's all over the board. We sat down and said, how are we going to make an impact in this world? And let's find the one thing. And now, every cause is great, and that's what makes the world go round. But for us, we are so laser focused on specifically starting in the Hamilton County Child Welfare Services and the foster and adoptive kids. So there's 2,900 foster kids in the system right now in Cincinnati, and we believe they're the most vulnerable. And so from a cycle standpoint, when you look at incarceration and you look at the economy and the workforce, finding homes for those kids to us is going to be part of the way to be able to take Cincinnati off the top 5 childhood poverty. So that's what we do, and I think to inspire anybody, we've got a family, 2 families that they are our family, and we financially support them when they know if they need somebody, they're calling us. We didn't go through the whole adoptive care system. We didn't formally do anything, but plugging into one person or one family truly can make a difference in this world, and for us, that's kind of what we've built the foundation around.
It's one step at a time, and we, Britney and Caleb and the organization, we've gotten to know each other a little bit in the last year, really. And I was involved and have been involved for a long time with the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption, and what Brittany's talking about, the opioid crisis that we're facing in Ohio, but not just Ohio. The number of foster kids that are now in the system is increasing at a rate we've never seen. And so
30%.
Yeah.
It's 30% higher with the opioid.
Unbelievable. All right, let's shift gears a little bit, talk about some industry type things. What do you see in the industry, trends, and what do you like? What do you like in the industry?
Well, I just sat through an hour speech about delivery, and so what I got from that, because that's a hot topic right now, is Postmates, Uber Eats, Grubhub, and we are like a hard no on it. And so it more solidified why. And another Rubyism that my dad says all the time is short-term greed, long-term regret. So incremental sales, great, through the roof. What happens when that one person, am I going on a rant right now? Keep me from going on a rant. Okay. That one person, there's something called carryover cooking. And if you put a steak in a box and then you travel it for 30 minutes, it's going to be well done. And so we don't believe in it, but I do think for for quick service restaurants that there is a niche there, and I think that it could potentially work. But I think the delivery service is a hot button right now, and labor obviously. So if anybody finds out how to cure that, call us.
That would be a big seminar if it was here, yeah. So, we also have a lot of companies here talking about the use of technology. Where's Ruby on that continuum, your organization, using technology, and what do you see coming?
Well, we're big into technology. I've got actually our quality assurance director here right now, and we measure our success based on software and a dashboard against our competitors. I will say what's sad, because we're people, we're about our employees, we're about our guests. The thought of taking away the human element to me is, we were talking about automatic dishwashers. If you took the dishwashers out of our restaurants, the team out there, he'd be heartbroken because those are his best friends when he walks back there and taking care of our team. And to think that that would go away is devastating. And I want to affirm what you're doing with just politics, because there might not be another option if some of the things go the way that you all are saying. So people are going to have to get creative in how to lower the labor costs to be able to sustain the business. But I really hope it doesn't get to that point.
So one of the things that we do track at the Restaurant Association is where wages going. And 17 states are raising their wage. Well, they raised it on January 1. Many states are moving to the $12, $13, $15 minimum wage, which can be good and bad depending on your perspective on all this, right, and where you are in that continuum of what you pay people. But there is pressure, on the labor line, and that leads really to the next question, and that is, it's not just what do you pay, but how do you attract? Like, what's the whole package that you deal with employees that are with you now to retain, and then when you try to attract new employees?
Well, you have to be authentic. I think anybody can say, I care about my employees, and you've had a CEO or a leader who doesn't care about his employees. They read right through that. You have to genuinely love your employees. We use the word love, and at first our leaders were like, that's a little deep. And it's like, no, it means that you care about somebody else's needs. And so we love our employees and we love our guests, but caring about them. And we offered, and I wasn't even part of this decision because I was probably a toddler at the time, but my dad offered insurance, free insurance to all of our employees before it was even a thought. And he still does that today, and that comes straight off bottom line. But making sure, what's I think the hardest thing, and I can say this in Columbus specifically, he cares about his employees. The GM, all of our directors at corporate can care about people and can care about our leaders, but if your store managers aren't, that's where the responsibility is to all of your employees. And so one of the things that we're focusing on this year, because we have a whole leadership development that we do, and it's a curriculum throughout the whole year where we do training, but what are we doing at the store level to make sure that we have the leadership at the store level? Because that's where I think, John, it can get away from people if you don't really focus on that.
All right, so we're going to have a little fun now. When you go to a restaurant, one of your restaurants, and you go in, the one meal you love at Jeff Ruby's, what do you get? And everybody get ready, write this down, because the president telling you this, right?
Well, I've had one too many Freddy salads. Most people would say it's our Freddy salad, but I love our Caesar salad. My brother jokes because I have one a day, and he's like, you literally every day have a Caesar salad. I do, and if I'm gonna get a steak, it's either gonna be the strip, the USDA prime strip, or it's gonna be the hatchet.
And
ribeye.
Okay.
Long bone ribeye.
All right, and if your dad's having a meal, that's what I want to know. What's he have?
Strip, no question.
Strip
Yeah,
steak. All right.
strip.
Okay, so you're aware of the restaurant scene. You guys look around a little bit. What do you see around the state? What do you like besides the space that you're in? What kind of restaurants do you like? What do you see?
Personally?
Yeah.
Oh, there's like two dives in Anderson Township that I go to. One's called Layla Mediterranean, and it's authentic Mediterranean. He's the chef owner. And the other one is Hibachi Master, because I can remember growing up going to Hibachi for birthdays, and they put on a show, and that's what we do. We're about a show. It's dinner and a show. So I wanted to go for my birthday in December. Kale's like, where are we going? I'm like, Hibachi Master with all my friends.
So just before we came up on stage, we had our good friend Tanisha Robinson come over.
And she tried to get me drunk. She brought me a beer.
Offer us a beverage. And I resisted, but Britney knocked back 6, so I don't know.
This isn't coffee.
No, it's a lot of fun. It's just a kind of a great relationship we have with each other, and We just wanted to give you an opportunity to obviously have everybody meet you. And what we'd like to do now is open up for any questions you might have. We have a mic on the stand there, and if you wouldn't mind, just come up because it's hard to hear if you don't.
All the rest of my managers are female. How do you deal with, as a female manager, customers or employees even that just, I guess, tend to dismiss you because you're a female? I know my one manager deals with a lot, and there's times where I have to go out and talk to a customer and just say, hi, I'm the general manager. This is my front of the house manager.
Yeah.
She's going to be taking care of you, and I walk away.
Well, what you did is right. You empowered her. I mean, don't come in and rescue her from those situations. Empower her to handle those one-on-one. But when I was a restaurant manager, I know exactly what they go through because they thought I was a hostess. And you've just got to build the confidence, and you've got to empower her to make those decisions. And so it's definitely something difficult, but I think the way that you handled it was right.
I mean, is there anything to help her, say, when I'm not there? I mean, it's real easy when I'm there to go talk to him and say, look, she's going to be talking to you. But when I'm not there to do something like that and they kind of dismiss her as even being a manager, how do I help her with that?
Well, I don't know what type of situation. Give me one.
I guess when they have a complaint and they ask to speak to a manager, she'll go out and say, hi, my name's Angie, I'm the front of the house manager, and there's been times where they blatantly don't believe her. They just say, you're not the manager, let me get a real manager. And that was the time where I happened to be there.
I'd blatantly ask them to leave. They'd know I was a manager then.
I like that one.
We just speaking on that recently, there was an email that came through, and there was a guest that was just going nuts in our restaurant. Nuts on the server, nuts on the manager. And I read at the end that they comped the meal in this email. And so I kind of fired right back, and I said, why did you comp their meal? We just wanted to get them out of there. I said, in that case, you're saying you agree, but then the message that also sends to the staff, like, it's like when the CEO, I'm sure you've heard the story from Southwest, and the CEO got involved in a customer complaint one time because it kept going up the pipeline, and eventually CEO, he said, this complaint isn't going away. And he called the person that complained on the phone, and he said, hey, I understand that you've had a difficult situation with Southwest, and I just want you to know, I think Southwest isn't the airline for you. I can recommend a couple. It's great. It's in his book. But I'm not big into almost stooping down to the level and saying no. I think if you have truly empowered her to say, I'm the manager, and maybe it's the way she's saying it, maybe it's just communication, and then you can take communication classes or read books on the communication. So maybe that's just something for a tool for her. But I would just, if she's the manager and she's the one on duty, then she's got to get that through to the people. And yeah. You want to answer?
Absolutely.
That's a good idea. So you're saying put a sign that says she's a manager?
No, just a name tag, like like employees have,
Yeah.
and has her name and whatever her title is.
Yep.
Nobody wears name tags right now, but
So
it's
that would
definitely
be-
something we've considered.
Yeah.
True. And that's usually what she wears, is not just a normal uniform. It's something kind of professional looking. It's just, and it's unfortunately it's mostly guys that she deals with this. No woman's ever questioned her on being a manager. It's always a guy.
Yeah.
Whereas when I approach them, they don't even for a second question me.
Yeah, I understand. It's a challenge. It's a good question.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, and clearly a Bengals fan.
Absolutely.
All right.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Mike. I have a couple pizza shops around here and about to open one in Cincinnati in a couple weeks.
Oh, awesome.
I
Where?
look forward to it. Right next to Rheingeist.
Yeah,
Actually,
cool.
right on Elm there.
Perfect.
So we put a lot of focus on our interiors, and I know you guys do as well.
Yeah.
So can you talk to me about the experience and how much effort you put into the interiors of your shops and why that makes a difference?
That's where, when we talk about roles and different roles that the family plays, that's something that is really important to my dad. And so he really designs the restaurants. He has an unlimited budget, and somehow he exceeds it. But he's creative, he's talented, finding, I mean, I assume that you work with a pretty good firm and somebody, or are you doing it yourself? Are you the designer? Are you? And so do you have somebody that kind of helps put that on paper or technology? You hand draw? Really? That's amazing. You might want to find somebody that can help you with it, just from, you might be there.
Mr. Ruby, would you be helpful? Could you help Mikey with his interior down by the Rhine, guys? Could you give him a hand?
I don't think I answered your question at all, did I? I helped a little? Okay. Oh, yeah, there you got a consultant one-on-one. You're on board, okay. Great.
Okay.
You know what I will say, though? Don't lose that passion, because our restaurants don't come out of a box. And they're everything that he does, that's where he spends his time. He's searching for antiques. He's traveling all over the place. These are one-of-a-kind pieces that he designs the restaurant around. And so when we have a designer, there's an inventory list, and it's, you have to use this, this, and this, and I want this type of chandelier. And so for you, you might want to just be able to hand that off to somebody, but don't lose that. I think what separates us when you walk in the restaurants, somehow it all works. It's a lot of stuff in one restaurant, and it was really hard to find a designer that kind of understood what we do, and we're still testing them out and auditioning them, but it's important. It's really important, because it's probably as important as the food and the service.
We are hoping to sell desserts to restaurants. And I was wondering if you had any advice on getting our foot in the door and like getting the chefs to taste our stuff and
Can you tell us who you're with?
Johnny's Johnny's Creamy Whip.
Oh yeah.
So we do soft serve, but we're doing completely different flavor combinations and like candied ice cream candies and pies and cakes of all kinds of crazy flavors and getting creative with it. So we want to sell directly to restaurants as part of their dessert menu, but we've not done that yet. So any advice would be good advice.
Do you have a booth here?
No, we're
So
just visiting.
the trade shows, because you've got a captive audience right here. These
Yeah.
are all chefs. In fact, we're probably going to pick up something. There's a key lime pie down here that we tried. And, you know, we're walking around. Events like this is huge. Do you love your desserts?
Yes.
Are they the best?
Yeah.
So just say that to people when, I mean, you've just got to be very passionate, because I can see right through a salesperson who doesn't believe that it's good.
Right.
When I said, is it the best? Your face lit up.
Oh yeah.
And so when you have meetings, you have to explain that, and obviously you bring samples and you get them to taste it, but it goes back to being authentic and getting behind something that you genuinely feel that you don't have to lie about.
Thank you.
And we're signing exhibitors up for next year. While we're here, young lady, if you want to have a booth for next year. We have time for a few more questions. Yeah, come on.
I'm short, sorry. Hi.
Hi.
So you talked about going into different markets like Lexington and now Columbus, but you're from Cincinnati. So how has your brand changed from, you mentioned like you're involved in the local communities, so from the national brand of Jeff Ruby's and that recognition versus really ingraining yourself in a local market?
So
How's
I
that
want
like
to make
work
sure
to your advantage, or?
it's the biggest challenge. I think where what we've sat around recently saying is we feel pretty good that people in Cincinnati know who we are. I can't say that people in Nashville or Louisville, I think probably because he kicked O.J. Simpson out of his restaurant and he was automatically a hero in that town. But there's other communities, and even up here in Columbus, I think for us, we're all about personality, and we're about family oriented and people knowing who we are, that we're not a corporate chain steakhouse. And so one of the things that we're starting to do is really get intertwined with the local PR companies to make sure that we're at events like this, and that, you know, we're front and center, not just in Columbus, Lexington, Louisville, everywhere we go.
It's important. You have to put your stamp everywhere you go. And I don't know if anybody saw the public relations and marketing that your organization did before you arrived here. It was impressive. We really knew you were coming, which is great.
Oh, good. Thank you. We used Reed. She did a really good job.
Yeah, good. Okay. We have time maybe for one more?
No, I'm sorry. Sarah Irving's in Columbus. It was Sarah Irving.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I'm Jason. I'm Mike's partner in Late Night Slice. My question is about, as you grow within the company, what can you say about like letting go of like the little things? I was doing all of our marketing, graphics, everything for the longest time, and I have a very talented team under me who actually does things better.
Yeah.
And it's hard sometimes to switch to
It's
the
really hard.
big picture mindset.
But you know it's important, right?
Absolutely.
So we have a training motto. It's teach, train, equip, empower. And what do people forget to do once you empower? Let go. Literally, like you have to let go. As long as you've done all of those things, teach, train, equip, empower them, then you did all of that for nothing if you don't let go. And that was hard for me because I micromanaged a lot, right? And mostly because we're really big on attention to detail. Was this complaint handled the exact way that I would want it handled? And but since I've really empowered this guy right here to do that with the GMs, and I think there's still opportunity for us to do it more, really. Your brain can now, it's on another level of how creative and how focused you can be on what your employees need you to be focused on. And so if you've got great people who are trained and ready to go, with that, you have to circle back, right? And so you have to follow up and make sure that it's getting done. But and if it's not, then you start back at the beginning, teach, train, equip again.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Is there any question that I didn't ask you that you'd like to speak about?
A question? No, but I'm going to tell a story about him. Is that okay? Do you know what I'm going to share? Okay. Do you? So he doesn't brag on himself enough. I mean, to run the CEO of Wendy's, you kind of are a good. No, I'm talking about you. So this was a few years ago, and I will say in the last 3 years, really, that for me has kind of been the business maturity for me. I was really focused on operations, and like really focused on it, and not to the level that I needed to be from a business standpoint. So he came into town, and it was like day one. I think Russell was even. It was like his first week, and we went to a local restaurant for lunch. And on the way back, he and I are talking, and we had just implemented this really great software, food and beverage inventory control software, and I was kind of telling him a little bit about this software and how much money we've saved since implementing it. And he said, "So what's your labor cost?" My mind just went blank. I mean, on another level of blank. And I'm like, I should really know this. Now, I will say we had, the way we separated out on the P&L, you've got front of house and back of house and then total payroll. And for some reason, my mind went to like something totally wrong, which was just the back of house labor. And he kind of looked at me and was like, he did that. I went back to the office and I actually quizzed a couple of the leaders. Do you know what our total labor is right now? They're like, well, let me look at the P&L. That taught me to not rely on my P&Ls ever again. Know your business inside and out. Know your food costs, your beverage costs, your labor, your supplies, your direct operating. If you're holding your managers to these numbers, you better know it like right away. And so I want to thank you because that was a lifelong lesson, and I just went back and I studied. So
I didn't mean to give you a hard time, but
it was something that I'll never forget. He'll tell you. I said, the president of Ohio Restaurant Association came in to ask me my labor. I didn't know what it was. Oh my God, I'm so dumb.
well, we all have those moments, right?
Now, don't ask me any more hard-hitting questions.
No. I'm sure everybody has those moments. I was a young pup at Wendy's, and Dave Thomas came in one day. I was in corporate. He said, "How much cash do we have in the account?" And I said, "I don't know, boss, but I can check." That was an F grade, okay, at that moment, not knowing that answer. So know your business. Well, from the Ohio Restaurant Association, we would like to thank you very much for gracing the stage.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Britney Ruby Miller.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.